I don't have my clock. It's getting noisy.
It just catches up.
Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to the Monday, April 22nd, 2024 regular meeting of the Weaverville Town Council. Thanks for being here, everyone. First, I wanted to start off by saying Happy Earth Day to everyone. Today is the 54th annual Earth Day. And to remind you also that this council last month passed a resolution recognizing Earth Day and encouraging our residents to avoid single-use plastics such as drinking straws and plastic bags, switch to reusable water bottles and drinking mugs, carry and use reusable cloth bags, which I always forget, it's always in my car. Replace plastic containers with glass or steel containers, be mindful of synthetic clothing materials, et cetera, et cetera. What you probably know is that plastics have invaded our environment, and microplastics actually now even swimming around within your body, and we need to do what we can to reduce that. I was proud to represent Weaverville along with other mayors this morning at an Earth Day celebration in Woodfin. There are a couple of adjustments to the agenda this evening, and council members may have some others, but let me start off with a couple. One is item under discussion and action items, item D, the Maple Trace annexation debate, update, excuse me. The Maple Trace folks have asked for their presentation to be moved to next month as they were waiting on the conclusion of one piece of information. So that item has been deleted from tonight's agenda. Also, the minutes B from March 19th, there were some errors discovered in that, and so we are going to correct those and bring those minutes back next month instead. So items B under consent agenda and D under discussion have been deleted. Council members, you've had opportunity to review the agenda. Are there any other adjustments that you choose to make? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda with the adjustments that I mentioned?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, sir. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Thank you very much. It is the duty of the mayor and every town council member to avoid both conflicts of interest and the appearances of conflicts. Does any member have any known conflict of interest or appearance of such with respect to any matters on the agenda tonight? I hear none. Thank you very much. Next item is our consent agenda, and Town Manager Coffey, would you go through the items on tonight's consent agenda?
Yes, sir, and thank you, and good evening to all of you. Beginning on page 3, you have the February 24th Town Council Strategic Planning Retreat minutes. You will see that those are fairly substantial in nature and have quite a bit of detail in those. On page 13, skipping B, which we will bring back at the next meeting, item C is page 13. That is your March 25th Town Council regular meeting minutes. Then page 21, you have the first page of your monthly tax report and requests for refunds and releases. And want to note that as of the date of this report for the end of March, Buncombe County has collected 19.25% of the town's property taxes at that point in time. You do have near the bottom third of the page for March, property tax levy refund or release of $2.26, and then a motor vehicle levy refund and release of $30.85. On page 27, you have a budget amendment. This is a budget amendment to move ABC distribution funds into the police department budget. And these amounts are for $3,088.71 for alcohol education and $2,206.22 for law enforcement. These both go to the police department. On page 29, you have the request by staff to schedule public hearings on both the annexation and the zoning of 75 Cole Road and the associated amendment to the comprehensive land use plan for May 20th at 6 p.m. If town council wishes to proceed on the matter. On page 40, this is the annual presentation of the town manager delegated policies. As those of you who have been on town council for a while, you do delegate some policies to the town manager. And so I have made some minor modifications to the following policies. One is the volunteer shared leave policy. One is and this was modified to allow voluntary shared leave to be approved for maternity and paternity leave for healthy babies. Whereas before it was for babies that were having difficulties. Equipment and vehicle use policy. This has been modified to limit take-home vehicles to within a 25-mile radius of, unless I or the town manager gives specific approval. Social media use policy and procedures modified to provide more instruction on the handling of public comments for compliance with First Amendment rights. And let me talk about this just for a second. For those of you, and for those of you in the audience and those that are with us via Zoom, you will notice that the Town of Weaverville departments who have a Facebook site do limit the comments on anything we post. We feel like social media is for information purposes only. We do not have staff to regularly be online and respond to comments that are being made. And frankly, there are a number of really dirty and ugly comments that are made that do not deserve a response. And I'll just be as frank as I can about that. And so we have limited comments on all of our social media platforms in order to first address the fact that we do not have someone monitoring social media, but also that is not the place for having comments that are inappropriate for others to read. So that is the modification there. That very simply. However, if we do not have the opportunity to go ahead and block who is permitted to comment, and someone slips through and does provide a comment, we are obligated by First Amendment laws to leave that there. We try very hard to not allow that to happen, but sometimes it does happen because you have to limit the comments after you've made the post, you've got to very quickly post the post and then turn back around and go into settings to determine who can comment, and that's where you turn off who can comment. So that is the policy change and the explanation there. Also, facility rental fees, and this is modified to streamline the application process and provide clarity on further restrictions on the items that have where we've seen damage at the community center, as well as potentially town hall when it is rented. On page 41, you do see the areas where there have been modifications in that policy and procedure manual index. And then behind that, you have the policies. The remote work policy is the primary one there that you will see. Beginning on page 8, you have road closure ordinances. This is for Music on Main, which is scheduled to be held Saturday, June 15th. And the next one is the road closure ordinance for the Weaverville July 4th celebration. On page 53, and I'll briefly turn this over to Mayor Fitzsimmons, is a proclamation honoring the 75th anniversary of the Weaverville Lions Club. And from the looks of the yellow in our audience, we do have a number of folks that are with us to recognize you all.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. In fact, if I could have Woody Bollinger and Rick Johnson come forward. High-tech stuff. We have a high-tech person here. We have a proclamation from Weaverville to recognize the 75th anniversary of the Weaverville Lions Club. I'm not going to read the entire document to you. I'm going to just read the closing paragraph, if that's okay. So whereas in recent years, the Lions Club has provided food assistance to individuals and neighborhood food banks, funded wheelchair ramps for the handicapped, given scholarships to Asheville Buncombe Tech and deserving North Buncombe High students, and supported a variety of other medical and wellness needs of the community, and will continue its efforts to help screen elementary school children in the area for eye diseases and problems. Now, therefore, I, Patrick Fitzsimmons, Mayor of Weaverville, on behalf of the Weaverville Town Council, do hereby commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Weaverville Lions Club and thank them for their service to our community. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. I would like to say thank you to the town council and also remind you that we have our car show on July the 20th. Our big fundraiser, because we are now in the process of picking scholarships for our children. I shouldn't say children, high school students to go to AD Tech. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may very quickly follow up on page 55, we have a letter of support for Advent Help. And this is a beginning, actually, the letter is actually on page 56, and this is for town council consensus for the mayor to sign off, supporting Advent Health in their certificate of need application to develop 26 additional acute care beds at the new hospital located here in Weaverville, or soon to be located here in Weaverville. So we request approval for that. And then finally, on page 57, staff requests that town council set the public hearing for the fiscal year 2024 through 2025 budget, and also provide notice of workshop location change, and this is due to the Board of Elections taking over our facility on that date, and so that is May 14th at 6 p.m. That is all of the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? If not, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Thank you. Manager Coffey, if you continue up with the town manager's report, item 5 on our agenda.
Certainly, beginning on page 58, your town manager's report for the month of April, starting off with the joint meeting of the planning board at our, with our last joint meeting. That meeting was canceled, so I would encourage you to go ahead and reschedule that joint meeting with the planning board, and I would recommend that we consider rescheduling that for a meeting after the budget adoption, which is anytime from July on. So we can discuss that later. Can certainly poll each of you to make sure, to ensure that you are going to be in town on the regular workshop dates, if the mayor would like for me to do that.
I would say, could we, is everyone comfortable going to do that night? Our regular workshop date after the budget would be the August or September meetings. I don't have the dates on the top of my head, but is everyone planning on being in town for the regular scheduled workshop on either the August or September date? How about we choose the September date? Everybody good? Good?
Looking at Mr. Eller here to make sure that sounds good to him, so that sounds great, thank you. We will make that happen. Budget process update, I appreciate the discussion and input from the March 19th budget workshop. Your input has been very helpful to us, and just a reminder that next budget workshop is Tuesday. Not Tuesday, April 16th. Yes, wait, hold on. Yes, it was 16.
It was.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Not going to be one.
I'm sorry, not gonna be, it was. I had my mind flipped I did some little flips in my head there for a second. We do have our next workshop that we just discussed in May, the one that will be moved to the fire department. You have an update there from the active Weaverville committee, and we'll let you know that I have asked that we actually have a formal update from the committee at your upcoming town council meeting, hopefully the meeting in May, if they're prepared at that time to provide information to you. Another update to you, this is for the Woodfin Weaverville Greenway Connector update. Mr. Eller and I will be attending a meeting in the upcoming few days to begin discussion of the selection of a consultant to begin this project. Once we start that project, we'll go through the steps of the contracting and then obviously the project kickoff, which we're anticipating to be June. Tree board. The good news is that we have received the 2023 Tree City award, and I want to thank staff for submitting that and getting that. I think we're probably close to year 30, if not at year 30 at this point in time. We do continue to receive tree board applications and have received 7 applications at the time of this report. Would like to have some thoughts from you about the makeup of the tree board. Currently, we have in the table there, you see in green, halfway page down the page on 59, you have 3 residents of the incorporated limits of town who have applied, but we also have 4 non-residents who have applied. I certainly wouldn't discourage allowing non-residents to participate on this board. It is one that I think so many people join our town, whether they live inside or not, and they have the best interest in mind. So I would encourage you to consider allowing non-residents to stay on this board. But I would like to ask for you to consider how you would like that what consistency you would like. Are you okay with 4 of the 7 being non-residents? Would you prefer a majority being residents? What are your thoughts about this?
And could you just remind people what is the scope of the work of the tree board, just so they understand what non-residents or residents might be contributing to?
Sure. Trick question there. One of the very first items for this board will be to determine their scope based on our comprehensive land use plan, other documents that have been approved, or other plans that have been approved by town council. So the goal will be that this group will work toward action items that fall directly in line with what you have determined as your comprehensive land use plan. All your strategic plan may have items, but they in general will work towards meeting expectations of those goals that have already been put in place by town council. But there can be obviously additional items that they could be working on outside of the scope of that. Previously, we had what was called the Conservation Board, and they worked on a number of different items as well.
Okay. What ideas y'all have?
Well, I don't know all of the names that are on here, but I know 2 of the names that are non-residents, and they are very much tree gardening people, and I think it's important to have some folks on there, whether they're residents or not, that do have the experience with this kind of thing.
I agree. If they're educated in that, it's good to have them, but I also think it probably ought to be 2/3 people from town.
Okay.
You know how we used to have the ETJ? You know, if it's somebody like that that's just barely outside but very interested.
Okay.
So do you all think do we want to go with the 7 we have, or do you want to set some limit here to the representation? Ms. Jackson?
So right now, 3 out of your 7 are in-town residents. So if Vice Mayor Cordell's thought of 2/3 or even a majority we're not there yet. So I don't know that, if that's where you're leaning, yeah, if that's where you're leaning, then you should hold.
I recently spoke with Wilma Penland from Reeves Creek Nursery, and she was on the very first tree board when Bet Stroud was mayor. She's not interested in being on the board, but she would be interested in being an advisor or to help them get started if anybody is interested in that. And she's not a resident. She lives out in Reeves Creek, but she certainly has that background.
So may I make a recommendation that we look for at least one more in-town resident to fill out the 4, so that makes sure that gives us a majority that are in town. But could I also suggest that we allow other folks to certainly participate? So that would allow these 4, even though they are not residents, they could still participate in these meetings. Obviously, they're public meetings. So if they wanted to participate and come and have some input, they could certainly do that. They just simply wouldn't have a vote per se if there's a vote that needs to come before town council.
Are people comfortable with the manager's recommendation?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Thank you for that input. Elevated trail design presentation, this is postponed until the May meeting. I do have a meeting scheduled with Peter Mills, who's the president of Elevated Trail Design, this Friday morning. And we're going to talk about where he stands with regard to the Quarry Road project and trail systems there.
Try and get a ballpark estimate out of him.
Yeah, right. I'll try my best. Grant application, I did mention to you, I think last meeting, we were in the process at that point, but we have applied now for $1,072,000, $7230, from the county's open space bond for passive recreation land, and this is for the Eller Cove Trail System. You do see there April through May is the scoring committee review. May through July is the subcommittee review. Subcommittee recommendation and commissioner selection is in August. I would encourage you, those of you who have relationships with colleagues that are on the Board of Commissioners, to put a plug in for our project, as the commissioners will make the final decision based on the subcommittee recommendations. And then finally, there projects for Congressman Edwards' office. I did have my colleague who works for Congressman Edwards did reach out to me, asked me for some thoughts about anything that the town may need, and asked me to stay in contact with him if there were issues or needs that the town has in the future. And so I did give him a list, in speaking to the mayor and I came up with a list of primarily greenway and recreation type projects that we could use some support for. The congressman has not said he's looking for more money for us necessarily, but I'm not throwing that out of the options, because I certainly do not, it doesn't bother me to ask for those, but certainly if there are letters of support or if there's any kind of support that the congressman can lend us, he has offered to do so. So I'll continue to maintain that relationship with Mr. Lauder, who works for Congressman's office. And then finally, 3 reminders. 11 o'clock this Friday, April 26th, is our Arbor Day program. You do see on page 61 a program for that, and that will be held again out in here in the circle beside between Town Hall and the Maggie B's building. On Monday 20th, the Town Council meeting this is an important one. You'll want to make note. Town Council meeting has been rescheduled for the 20th because the Memorial Day is on the 27th. Also do want to encourage you to attend the Memorial Day observance at the Community Center on Monday 27th at 11 a.m. That is all of the manager's report, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions or comments about the manager's report? Yeah. Our next item up is item 6 on your agenda, which is general public comments, and we do have folks who have signed up to speak this evening. And the first up is Jill Topman. And many of us probably recognize Jill as a Weaverville's favorite librarian and storyteller.
Retired.
Retired librarian.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. I wanted to speak tonight in support of the town transitioning programming at the community center from the Weaverville Center for Creative and Healthy Living to the town. It's been amazing to me in the last 2.5 years, the kind of response that the programs there have gotten from the community. You know, whatever classes or entertainment that I've attended, I see people that I know are long-term Weaverville residents as well as brand new people to Weaverville. I think it really pulls us together as a community, and with an emphasis on healthy living, which is, you know, a priority, I think, for members of the town. We had some really great entertainment programs there too. And the thing to remember is that all of the facilitators for these are volunteers, community volunteers, from mahjong to line dancing to music and storytelling. And I just think it's a wonderful thing for our community, and I think it's a great thing for my tax dollars to go to support that kind of thing. And moving forward, I hope that council in their discussions will, you know, take into account how many people utilize the programs at the community center. We have such a beautiful facility that to fill it up with people on a regular basis is just the best that we can do. And thank you for considering doing the transition.
Thank you. And certainly programming at the community center has been a resounding success, and certainly in part because of Tom Belichieri, who's sitting there on the front row seat too. So Tom, thank you for your great efforts of bringing the success to us. Next up is, and Matthew, I'm going to mess up your name, Matthew Naines. Did I correct the spell? Noun? Canal, sorry.
An hour. It's a tricky one. That's all right. Mayor, members of the council, thanks for your time and your service. My name is Matthew Knauer. I live at 31 Alabama Avenue and have been a resident of the town for 21 years. Maybe halfway as long as some of our Lions Club friends that are in here tonight. Thank you for what you all do. I would like to share my concerns regarding the continued proposal to ban and regulate short-term rentals, STRs. Within the town of Weaverville, this issue was introduced by Councilwoman Wood in 2023 to the Planning Board under the premise that STRs were both primary driver to housing affordability and feelings that they were negatively impacting our community. In response, the town conducted 2 separate studies, first by our Planning and Zoning Director that included interviewing the Police Department, Fire, Public Works, the Weaverville Business Association. This investigation revealed no evidence of issues linked to STRs. Second, via the Land of Sky Regional Council to research existing STRs in Weaverville and conduct listening sessions with residents. I attended 2 of the listening sessions and also attended the March 25th Town Council meeting in which Kayla DiCristina from the Land of Sky delivered her presentation on the study. Her presentation shed light on the fact that many of the issues attributed to STRs were relatively minor, something as simple as trash cans knocked over, and could be resolved organically through better communication and fostering more understanding among residents and owners of STRs, and that these issues overall were few and far between. The study was also unable to substantiate the claim that STRs are a driving influence in housing affordability or availability in Weaverville. Furthermore, the study highlighted the positives of STRs in regards to proper upkeep of those homes, support of other local businesses, as tourism is huge here, and supplying needed accommodations within a town that has a limited supply. I was very disappointed after the March 25th meeting that several members of the council went against the recommendations from these studies and immediately sought to move forward with a ban on whole home STRs and requested the planning board to pursue this end. My wife and others submitted letters stating our concerns. It's unfortunate those council members would hold their personal feelings and agenda with a higher value than the factual information that was presented to them. I find this irresponsible and in opposition to both common sense solution and what would be the best interest for the town and its residents. It would seem that a fair bit of this topic has been perpetuated by feelings and misinformation and not factual information. What we do know is that STRs make up somewhere between 3 and 4% of the overall housing supply in Weaverville. As Councilwoman Cordell correctly pointed out in the last meeting, the STR market has already gone its own course correction, meaning the market's fluid, it's risen, it's fallen, and the market will continue to regulate STRs as a viable investment opportunity. The majority of STRs in Weaverville are owned by state or local residents, and for many, these STRs represent a significant source of their annual income. And as Attorney Jackson clarified, STRs are considered a legal residential use. So I would request the town to table banning whole home STRs, for the town to not make changes to the current zoning text or language that would essentially prevent STRs within those regulations of zoning, for the town to take a multi-year approach both for further study and to engage with local owners and residents further on a solution that suits our town and its needs before taking further action. We're not Woodfin or Wilmington. I think we can come up with a better solution for Weaverville. And the county might propose a solution as well, but obviously conditions here in our town that we care about are different than what's happening in Irwin or South Asheville. While this is an important conversation, further engagement is clearly needed. I would ask for the members of the council not to insert regulations as the final solution at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for a reminder of everyone, this issue is before the town's planning board right now, and the council is awaiting their review and recommendations. Next item up, and just remind folks, please, as our last two speakers knew to do, state your name and your address, and if you hear that dinging bell over there by the town manager, that means your time is up. Mary Brigman? What is it?
I'm Marcy Brigman.
Marcy Brigman, I'm sorry.
Okay. Hello all. Yeah, Marcy Brigman. I live at 218 Old Dry Ridge Circle. Been a resident here for 20 years. Tonight I want to discuss the rules governing the utilization of the new pickleball and basketball courts. I acknowledge all the efforts invested during the planning stages, and the rules that are posted are a great start, but I'm here to see if we can iterate and make them better. I have 3 points to talk about tonight. The first is that I want to address why the courts should remain unlocked and keep parking a separate issue. Second, I will talk about pickleball etiquette. And third, I'll address being an inclusive community. So first, locking the courts on Wednesday afternoons so that it frees up parking spots for the tailgate market may sound good in theory, but let's think about it. Many community members do not require a parking spot to use any community center amenities, including the courts. We live in a walkable neighborhood. Parking is first come, first serve, and any spot can be used for any amenity. Is parking an issue? Absolutely. But let's keep the courts unlocked and address parking in a separate conversation. And not only are locking the courts on Wednesdays an issue, but locking the courts in the evening and using valuable time from our police force and other staff members is another issue. The playground is no different than the courts and should be treated the same. The possibilities of noise and crime are no different. The playground has obviously never been locked, and neither should the courts. Second, pickleball etiquette. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport for a reason and shouldn't be confused with tennis. It's easy to learn, includes all demographics, and champions inclusivity. I recently visited a pickleball facility and took a picture of their rules, which I will hand out some copies to when I'm through. Many of the rules we have posted are unnecessarily complex and very confusing. It contradicts the fundamental values of what pickleball is and why it has rapidly grown. Lastly, the community center is predicated on the notion that no single entity or activity supersedes another in importance. The parking in all areas of the community center come first come, first serve. The courts, the playground, walking trail, everything. Anyone can park in the pickleball courts parking lot and walk down to the picnic tables, and vice versa. Implementing solutions such as locking the courts in an attempt to put a Band-Aid on the parking issue is inadvertently contradicting the principles of our community center. We're all about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? The community center is supposed to bring us together. That is the fundamental principle, and giving special treatment to one group over another doesn't sit right with me or other members in this community. All amenities are intertwined and feed off each other. We can use the courts and other amenities at the same time as the tailgate market. Let's go ahead.
You're still going.
You can go.
You're still going.
Did your microphone go out or something? Oh, now your time is up.
So, if I may, go ahead and finish your,
Finish your thought.
yeah.
So I was just saying that all the amenities are could I have 1 minute?
I don't think it's a whole minute, but
Okay.
whatever.
All the amenities are intertwined and feed off of each other. All that, they can be used at the same time. So parents are at the tailgate market, children at the playground, teenagers shooting hoops, some people working, some walk, some drive, some have money to spend, some don't. You see where I'm going. This vision epitomizes the essence of community. The community center is meeting all of our diverse needs and interests simultaneously. So to wrap things up, I want to emphasize what an awesome community we have. There's been so much positive change, and as we keep growing, let's make sure we're staying true to our values of inclusivity and equity. These ideas are not just mine. I've talked to many other people around town, and they feel the same way. So I would love for us to take an opportunity to address these concerns and reaffirm our commitment to the evolving landscape of our town.
Thank you very much. If you would leave your comments and photos with the town manager, I'm sure she'll be working on these issues.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we are at a 10-minute mark. If there are not too many, it's up to town council to continue.
We've got 3 more folks.
It-
Very good.
Excuse me, if I may clarify just one thing, because we do have a crowd of people here, and I think it's important to note that we actually do close down the playground at dusk, so that is, the comment was mentioned that is not closed at dusk, and it is closed at dusk, and that I clarified that with our chief as well.
Thank you. Tricia Hallfield.
Hi, I'm Tricia Hollifield, 5 Yarrow Meadow Road in Weaverville. My husband has been a resident of Buncombe County for 60 years and for Weaverville for more than 20. Reading from an email from James Eller, the planning director, the proposed ordinance for short-term rentals for the town stands now. As that stands now, a zoning permit will be required to establish all existing short-term rentals in town. There is a state statute that says you cannot require permitting or registration for short-term rentals. Violation of that costs the residents of Wilmington $300,000 in legal fees. It is also discriminatory zoning or classifying ownership is also illegal in this state. As residents of this town, we would like a written opinion from the town attorney on this particular issue. Under the Freedom of Information Act, as residents, we have the right to ask for that and then to be provided with it. We want it on record that this council and the planning board is aware that what they are proposing to do is illegal. Perhaps this will be a warning from your own attorney that will curb the personal agendas, blatant and willful disregard to do what is right for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure the attorney would be glad to help you with that. I also want to point out that the planning board at this point has made no recommendation, so there is no recommendations at this point, and so there is no recommended policies at this point, so. Darla Letourneau?
Do we need?
I can address a couple of things. One is that the planning board hasn't even seen a draft yet. So the regulations are very much in the process of being written. I will also point out that I offer my legal opinions to town council, and it is up to town council as to whether they wish to have those be made public or not.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Darla?
Darla Letourneau, and I'm a resident of Weaverville on 16 Lakeshore Drive. And I submitted my written comments in advance, so I'll just try to summarize here. I had reviewed the briefing package as well as the manager's proposed budget. And I want to speak tonight about my support for fully funding cost of living increase for staff. The most valuable resource any town has is its human resources. And this town has put together an incredible team of staff that is providing outstanding services to our community across the board. And as a new resident, I've been very impressed by the professionalism, the responsiveness, the dedication to the well-being of our community by everyone I've interacted with. So that's pretty amazing in my book. And you've done a lot of, you can do a lot to recruit and retain staff by having it be a place people want to work, with a good culture, good leadership, but you also need fair compensation. And I was surprised to see that for 4 years, you have not had a cost of living increase. And during that time, as you recall, there's been really high inflation across the board. So, in looking at the national average, the CPI over those 4 years with no cost of living increase was almost 20%. And you have done merit increases, but merit is usually after you've adjusted for inflation. And you can't really replace cost of living increases with merit increases, which is, I think, what the town has done for the last 4 years. The budget package for this year does propose for the first time 3% for COLA and 2% for merit pay. But I think that looking at the chart you had in your package of what our other communities in our area are providing, we have the lowest cost of living increase for this year's proposed budget. And I really think that it's time to reflect the value of our community and our staff. And it's also a wise investment for the future because we're growing. It's penny wise and pound foolish really to 4 years in a row kind of shortchange the staff and expect them to all stay. And we're competing in a pretty tight market. And I think it's something we can do without a tax increase using the fund balances that are available. And I think as the town manager pointed out, this is not a gap year, but a bridge year, where next year between the developments we permitted and the Buncombe County tax property reassessment, there is going to be more revenue. So it's a question of what to do in this year. So I urge you to go closer to the 3.8% COLA. That is really the reflection of what inflation has been. It doesn't make up for the 20% of inflation that was not compensated for, but at least it starts us on the right path. So thank you.
Thank you. I just need to point out to all of you that the idea that Weaverville has not given that cost of living range in the past is incorrect, and also that our town staff is competitively compensated. So, but thank you for your comments. Tom Bellistrieri.
Good evening, Tom Balistreri, 26 Whitetail Drive. I'm here tonight to lodge a thank you to all of you. Last time I spoke at this podium was a little over 3 years ago. I had proposed to then Mayor Al Root a proposal for the Weaverville Center for Creative Health, Healthy Living. All of you and those of you who were here at that time endorsed it fully. Town staff has been nothing short of amazing in their immense support of who we are and what we have done and how we've tried to bring volunteers together in this town, provide programming for free for the last 3 years. We are fast approaching the end of the 3-year commitment that our board made to this town at that time. I know there is a move afoot. Thank you for supporting this in the budget and turning over the reins to the town recreation coordinator, who I understand is present somewhere in the room tonight. And I just want you to know that I truly, on behalf of our board, and the hundreds, perhaps thousands of people who've attended these programs, special events over the year and have literally voted with their feet by supporting us. I just want you to know that all of us appreciate what you have done, because what we have created here is unique for many, when you look at so many of the different communities around here, what we've been able to accomplish through our volunteers, who have been nothing short of also just amazing. Again, it's our volunteers who bring the magic every day. And without them, we couldn't have done this. And it couldn't, and without just the general support of all the people from our town who just show up and participate day in and day out. So again, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for your support. Thank you for getting us to this point where I finally get to retire as chairman of the WICL's chairman, and as the official chairman, who's put up so many chairs in that in that building. I think there should be a plaque for me in the barn where you keep all those chairs. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. And again, Jill, thank you for coming up and saying something. It's been a great ride, and I know it's going to be in great hands. And I have promised to stay on as in an advisory role for the next year, but there will be no typing, no computer work.
No chair left?
No chairs.
All righty, but thank you so very much, and again, a credit to all of you.
And thank you, Mr. Bellasteri, and to all the volunteers for the great success at our community center programming. That concludes our public comments. Next up is item 7, our discussion action items, and our first item is a presentation from Advent Health, and we're going to welcome Graham Fields and Jeremy Wild from Advent Health.
Well, good evening, everybody. It is an absolute honor and a privilege to be here. I want to start by introducing my colleagues. This is Jeremy Wild. He is our Business Development Manager at Advent Health. This is Mark Merle, who is one of our Administrative Directors at Advent Health. And my name is Graham Fields, and my official title is really made up. It's Assistant to the President. But more than anything, I just wanted to share with you our excitement, our gratitude, and the honor that we feel. I'm a native of Weaverville, and so to stand before you with such a momentous project and something that I think will really have a huge impact on the community that I love and where my mother still lives is really quite an honor. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. We are very grateful. We are guests in your community, and we want to build that relationship with you from the very beginning, because I know something like this, you want some more information and want the opportunity to stay updated, and we want to keep that connection. So if it's all right, I'll take just a few minutes of your time. You have just a kind of a basic overview in front of you, and I'll just kind of highlight some of the main points of that, and if my colleagues have more to share, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to do that if that works well. Well, first off, I want to make sure that everybody is aware, obviously, where the property is. We've had the privilege to secure property right on 2570, just past CVS. And the initial piece of property was about 25 acres. Ultimately, when we're finished with the site, it'll be, as you see on the document, about 30 acres. So that's sort of the first step that we're honored to be part of Weaverville and this community. This CON will serve not only Buncombe County, but also Yancey County, Madison, and Graham counties. And we've been spending a lot of time visiting and making similar presentations and interactions with those communities as well. I think the most important thing that might be of interest to you and to the community is maybe a little bit of a brief history and a time frame of maybe when to expect the next steps. So the certificate of need was approved by the state and was awarded to Advent Health Hendersonville. Advent Health and Mission HCA appealed that decision. And so we went through a court process. Both Mark and I both were part of that. and we are awaiting the judge's final decision of that appeal. Obviously, we want to follow that process, but have great confidence that the state has made the right decision. We appreciate the support of the community for that, and should have a final decision, we think, Mr. Merle, probably by the end of this month. So we hope to have that. There is probably one more step for our colleagues at HCA and Mission that they may again appeal that decision. And so time frame wise, that could delay the process probably until the end of the year. So our opportunity to really get started and begin moving dirt would be either the very end of this year, but more likely the beginning of next year. Once that happens, we're looking at probably an 18 to 24 month period. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more on the 24-month period. But really that whole time frame is a process to continue connecting with the communities, particularly with Weaverville and with those other 4 counties and many of the stakeholders. So we're trying to have listening sessions in our communities. We're scheduling those now, and really just trying to get community input and input from our health and human services partners. We've met with the fire service and want to meet with law enforcement, EMS, and others. And so really our process now, I thank you very much for the letter of support for the 26 beds. To give you an idea of what that would mean is right now it's 67 beds at the current location. With those 26 beds, what would be so helpful, I think, for the community is to have additional scale. You know, with scale and with size, you have the opportunity to bring more service lines. More people can receive a higher acuity care closer to home. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. My colleagues are here if there are more specifics that maybe would be helpful to learn. We are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So could you describe just there's a good picture right there. Tell us what's in that picture.
Sure, that's essentially a rendering of what the 67-bed hospital may look like. Wanted to give people just an idea of essentially the size. I think a good comp would be if you've had the opportunity to be at Advent Health Hendersonville. That facility is approximately 103 beds. So when you look at maybe its footprint and size and scale, if you were to remove a few of those beds, that might be a similar footprint for it. We expect that facility that you're seeing, just a rendering kind of early in the process now, would create about 600 jobs. And if you think about it on the size and scope of Advent Health Hendersonville as we stand, that's probably 1,200 to 1,300 jobs. So obviously that could grow and have a big impact, I think, from a workforce development standpoint.
And I believe your campus would also include office space that would not be necessarily just hospital beds, correct? Could you describe that for us?
Correct. So I think at this point, and Mark may have more thoughts to share on that, but it's really trying to understand the community need, because a hospital is more than a place to be in one of those 67 or 26 beds. It's a place for whole person care and preventative wellness. And so you think about the physician offices that could be in a medical office building. You think about the different services that could be on a campus like Advent Health Hendersonville. You see specialty care physicians, physical therapy, all those opportunities for health and preventative health. But certainly, Mark, if there
Graham summarized it pretty well. The only thing that I would add is you're correct. The campus itself will likely have medical practice offices, but beyond that, we believe that care needs to be as close to the patient as possible. And so we would want to make sure that as we support the 4 counties that are listed in the CON, that we're making sure that our access to care is beyond just the campus, but it's in the communities where we serve. And so we believe that as we grow with the community, that there'll be opportunities to partner with different healthcare providers within the community to make sure that we have good access into the hospital. Like I think Graham mentioned, our goal is to keep you out of the hospital. And so in order to do that, we want to prevent the care in the hospital, and so that's being close to the community providing services.
So an example from Mr. Merle might be a federally qualified health center. You know, we've been very purposeful to meet with existing providers. You know, where do people get their health care now? How can we, in some ways, really become part of that fabric, right, to augment and enhance what's already happening? And so it's meeting with everybody from FQHCs in Buncombe County to to Madison County, had lunch in Yancey County with the FQHC, and really just understanding the landscape to make sure we can harmonize with it.
Are there any other things that the town of Weaverville can do in support of your moving forward?
You know, we would be grateful, in addition to the letter, there'll be an opportunity for the public to write letters about these 26 beds. The application is due, I think, in the middle of June. So it's June, I think, the 17th. Is that correct? Following that, there'll be an opportunity for a public hearing. So if people are so inclined or interested, they can speak on behalf of as an elected official or as an individual or as the community to share their feelings, and that factors into the decision-making process. And I think one of the biggest things that would help us is to have folks speak at that public hearing and talk about what scale adding those beds there would mean to the community, and particularly the whole service area, as Mark said. I mean, I think this will provide choice and competition and an option not only for Buncombe County, but for Yancey, Madison, and Graham. And one of the things I want to share about our friends in Graham County is I know if from a geography standpoint, that's 100 miles from here. And so Graham, from a standpoint of planning, has been connected to Buncombe and Asheville for many years, at least on paper, in the planning portions of the state. And so we have worked very closely to try to bring health care to Robbinsville and are in the process of reopening a health clinic and urgent care in that community. Because again, wherever we put the hospital in this area, when you're 100 miles away, it's limited in its ability to make an impact for your citizens.
Thank you.
Council members, any other questions or comments for this gentleman? Well, we are very excited to have you here and look forward to working with you as you get through this process. And the town manager will get the letter of support from the town to you quickly.
We're grateful. Thank you very much. We
Welcome to
appreciate it.
Weaverville.
Thank you.
Next item up is 7B, a social district request for Music on Main event, and Camille Daniels from the Weaverville Business Association.
This is my first time up here. Can you hear me? There we go. I'm Camille. I'm here with the Weaverville Business Association, talking to you about approving a social district during Music on Main. I also have a group of people with me as well. If it would be okay, would you be able to stand up and do a quick introduction of your name and who you represent? And we also have Fionn. Do you want to say something? Okay, great. Anyone else here with social districts? Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Who's doing these slides? Yeah, there. Thank you. During this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about what we're proposing, which is the social district during Music on Main, what other social districts look like, and what needs to be done to implement a social district. So what are we asking for? The WBA is asking the town to approve a social district during our Music on Main event this year. This is only for Music on Main, which is June 15th from 3:30 to 9. We're not asking for it on any other day. We're also only asking for it inside the existing Music on Main boundary. So we closed down the road between Merriman and Town Hall, and we're just wanting the social district to be inside that same area. We're not asking for it to go all the way up Main Street. So what does this look like? Right now, patrons who come to the event who want to have a drink can only buy beer and wine from the WBA's beer tent. Inside the boundary, we have 3 businesses, Main Street Grill, Twisted Laurel, and Maggie B's. If you want to buy a drink from them, you're only allowed to drink it inside of their business. You cannot buy a drink and carry it out onto the closed street, even though hundreds of other people are already drinking a drink on that closed street. So with the social district, Patrons can then support our 3 small ABC businesses, buy a drink inside, and then join their friends outside. So just a quick side note, because I've heard some misconceptions about this. There will already be drinking on the closed street. Implementing a social district is not going to change that. It only changes where you can buy it from if you want to consume it outside. But what about liquor? So that's a great question. The social district state law does allow liquor to be part of the social districts. However, local municipalities can restrict it to just beer and wine if that's preferred. We've had conversations with town staff and Weaverville Police about whether liquor should be included, and the consensus is that alcohol is alcohol. If you have a gin and tonic or an IPA, you'll still be consuming alcohol. Also, it would just be easier to allow all forms of alcohol leave the business premises instead of policing which type of drink is in a cup. And our ABC businesses still have the same responsibilities of safe and proper serving, and we're confident in their experience, whether they're serving beer, wine, or liquor. So given all this, our current Music on Main social district plan does include liquor. So what are the benefits? We get to support our local businesses. We also get to reduce police effort that is spent monitoring the ABC businesses' exits, so that they can instead focus on other safety factors at the event. Also, safer bartending. We want to have a greater percentage of alcohol served by licensed bartenders from ABC permit holding businesses who are more educated in proper serving and safety than our beer tent volunteers, and also are mindful of their ABC license responsibilities and potential liabilities. The more we can get alcohol served by our ABC businesses, the safer the entire event will be. So what are the cons? Town employee time. The WBA will be doing most of the effort purchasing, coordinating, and implementing the requirements for the social district. However, it's still going to cost the town some time on it. And I estimate it will cost about 15 hours of town employee time to implement the social district. Now, this is separate from the extensive time the WBA in town has already spent discussing social districts in general, as well as all of the time that the town spends supporting Music on Main, regardless of a social district. The social district will not cost the town any additional expense for physical items. Also, public perception. You might get some Facebook comments from people who don't like it. Does this mean that people will be drunker? Not really. Just because there are an increased number of points of sale does not mean there will be an increased number of drinks consumed per person. So when we had our 3rd brewery open in Weaverville, did you increase the total number of drinks that you consumed, or did you just distribute that differently? At Music on Main in 2023, the WBA beer tent poured about 2,000 drinks. If there's a social district, there will be 4 points of sale. We would expect a similar total number of drinks poured, just spread out between the 4 locations now. So how do the businesses feel about it? There are 4 businesses, including 3 ABC businesses, that will be open inside the Music on Main boundary, and 1 that's adjacent. So that's Main Street Grill, Twisted Laurel, Maggie B's, Weaverville Realty, and Prescription Pad, which is about 10 feet north of the boundary. So all 4 businesses inside the boundary strongly support the social district. The Prescription Pad has a split opinion. The owner supports the social district, but the GM does not. So let's back up a little bit and talk about other social districts across the state. So as of March 2024, there were 55 registered social districts across the state of North Carolina. Also, about 23 of those have been implemented just in the last year, so it is growing in popularity. Here's some positive feedback from it. Norwood has said, we have no negative issues with the social district, and as a matter of fact, it's been precipitous in procuring new investors that are exploring starting new businesses in downtown Norwood. Hickory has said, I meet regularly with our police department's patrol staff, and we've had an officer stationed downtown, and we haven't had any issues with security. All feedback has been great. Kannapolis said, it's not that people are showing up and just drinking and drinking and drinking. You're having a glass of wine or a beer outside at a table. It's not anything excessive. It's been a wonderful addition to what we can offer downtown. Silva has said, we checked statistics for the same time frame last year. That was when they did not have a social district. And there is no increase in police calls. I can tell you just from policing here, we have not seen an uptick in anything in particular, not even alcohol related. Raleigh said, we've not really seen a whole lot of issues. We've not seen any issues with misbehavior or disorderly drunkenness or anything like that. So another misconception I've heard is that a social district would be 24/7, and that's not the case. Each municipality can choose which days and hours you want the social district to be active. So let's take a look at how some other towns have set up their social district hours. Silva has Monday through Saturday, 8 to 9, and Sunday, 10 to 9. Claremont does special events only. Brevard does 11 to 10. Lexington does 10 to midnight. Hudson does Thursday and Friday, 5 to 11, and Saturday, noon to 11. Franklin, they approved theirs in January, it just hasn't started yet. They approved noon to 9. Raleigh does 10 to 10. Hickory does 10 to 10. Greensboro, they do noon to 9, and then they liked their first one so much they started a second location. Also in this, Silva and Raleigh did start with fewer hours, but they've expanded it. So now, just again, we're not asking for an all-year social district. We just want one on June 15th from 3:30 to 9. So if we are going to do that, what does it look like? There are 8 steps to enact a social district. 1, we have to write and adopt an ordinance. 2, write a management and maintenance plan and post it to the town's website. 3, submit the maps, days, and hours to the ABC Commission. 4, submit the special event notice to the ABC Commission. 5, create a logo. 6, purchase cups that are of regulation. 7, post boundary signs during the social district's active hours. And 8, post window signs by the front door of each business with their participation option. So going through the first step there, write and adopt an ordinance. This ordinance is what makes the social district legal in our town. Jennifer Jackson has drafted the ordinance and it is included in your agenda. 2, write a management and maintenance plan and post it to the website. So the management and maintenance plan details the way in which Weaverville Social District will operate. It should be that anyone can open up the management and maintenance plan and understand what's going on. You know, the hours, the signage, everything like that. The WBA has drafted this plan and it's been reviewed by the town manager, town attorney, and Weaverville Police. If the social district is adopted, this will be posted on the town's website. The full plan is also included in the agenda. 3, submit the ABC Commission the map, days, and hours. So this is a very simple registration which WBA and town attorney will submit if the ordinance is adopted. 4, the special event notice. So the WBA receives a special event permit from the ABC Commission every year to do Music on Main. We'll just have to let them know with that application that it's going to be inside a social district. It's actually very simple. 5, logo. So a social district needs a unifying logo across required signage. Here are some examples of other towns' logos. They can be quite simple or they can be elaborate. Here's the logo that I've created. I'm not a graphic designer. I made this in Microsoft Paint, and just so you know, it can be changed at any time. 6, the cups. So the cups have 5 requirements. It has to display that logo. It has to also identify which business the drink was purchased from. It has to contain, in no less than 12-point font, the statement "Drink responsibly, B21." It can't be made of glass, and it can't be bigger than 16 fluid ounces. So for this social district, I am proposing the sticker method. This is what multiple other social districts across the state do regularly. So the WBA will purchase stickers and distribute these to our ABC businesses. The businesses will then purchase their own cups, which they'll just get some plain plastic cups. They'll write their business name on the sticker, and then they will put the sticker on the cup. It's definitely the most effective way for doing it for a special event social district. So I have a little prototype of these cups here for you, if you want to see these. Here's the sticker that I am proposing. So we will have on here the logo, they'll write the name of their business, it'll have "Drink Responsibly, B21," and then businesses will supply their own cups. They will put the sticker on the cup. And this also allows for different sizes depending on the type of alcohol you're pouring. 7, boundary signs. So the boundary signs has a few legal requirements as well. You have to include which area is included in the social district. You have to have the days and hours in which alcoholic beverages can be consumed. You have to have the telephone number of the ALE division and the Weaverville Police. You have to have a clear statement that an alcoholic beverage purchased for consumption in the social district can only be consumed inside the social district and be disposed of before leaving. Here are some boundary signs of other social districts across the state. And here's the boundary sign. Here's my prototype of the boundary sign. We are going to print out 14 of these lawn signs, traditional 24 by 18 corrugated lawn sign. We have our requirements on here, our logo, our number, no alcohol beyond this point, our map, the days and hours. We've also included a QR code on here. And the QR code will link to the WBA's Music on Main website, where we're going to spell out very obvious plain English exactly what's happening with the social district and the rules and policies for it. And then the final requirement, number 8. Each business has to post a unified window sign by the front door. So another misconception I have heard about social districts is that all businesses have to participate in full. And that's not true. They get 5 participation options, including just not participating at all. So let's talk about these participation options. Now, each individual business does get to choose this for themselves, and they can always change their mind at some point along the way. So 1, they're an ABC business, and they want to sell drinks that can be carried outside. So for Music on Main, this would be Maggie B's, Main Street Grill, and Twisted Laurel. 2, they do not sell alcohol, but they allow people to carry alcohol inside their business. So this would be Weaverville Realty. And there's other 3 options, which no one currently chooses, but I want to mention them just to be thorough about the social districts. 3, they're not an ABC business, and they also do not want alcohol to be carried inside of their business. 4, they're an ABC business that sells alcohol that can be carried outside, but they also allow alcohol purchased somewhere else to be carried inside their business. Now, get a lot of questions, why would anyone want that? But just for an example, let's say my husband wants a beer from Twisted Laurel, but I want a glass of wine from Maggie B's. We can go into Twisted Laurel, get his beer, and then he can come with me inside Maggie B's and wait in line while I get a glass of wine, and then we both go outside. Or 5, they just don't want to participate at all. So they're an ABC business that just doesn't want to do it, and that's totally fine too. So like, let's just say hypothetically, Twisted Laurel can just choose to opt out. So then these window signs, getting back to these. Here are examples of other window signs that other social districts use. And here are the window signs. These will be printed out in color, in cardstock, and fastened by the front door somewhere that's really obvious when you're walking into them. 8.5 by 11 in color. And we're also going to use the QR code on these as well. That's going to go to that same social district website on the Music on Main page. And that's it. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns about this?
What questions y'all have for Camille?
Do any of these where you have the positive feedback, I mean, I can understand, well, first you said there's 25 and 23 of them are basically new. So we know there's not a lot of history for us to look at. And if I read the positive feedbacks, then it's okay to assume that most of this is like, we're having dinner and it's a social district instead of a concert like we're gonna be having.
It varies location to location. So Claremont, for example, they do special events only, and so they want it to just be like during a concert, and they don't want it to be on your average Friday evening. Raleigh, they were also one of the first ones to have a social district, and they have the biggest social district. They have multiple special events regularly inside of theirs as well. And so they also will do, concerts or outdoor markets or things like that.
Okay. So now my next question would be, what's gonna happen when somebody carries it past? You don't have the answer to that, but I'm sure she does.
If I may add before Chief Oberlin, Chief Oberlin responds to your question, I did do some research. I polled on the manager's listserv, which has around 700 folks across the state. There are 3 that have that responded that have event-specific social districts. So the majority do have social districts that are set up full-time.
I'm curious, what was the feedback from your colleagues?
They had fairly positive comments after the first event. They had some bumps in the road after their first event, but they did come back and iron some things out, and we're able to make it happen successfully.
So the first one is a learning experience.
Sure.
Hello. To answer your question about alcohol leaving the social district boundaries, if it is an intentional violation, they can be charged with open container, just like they would if they were doing it now on the street, walking around with an open alcohol.
What kind of fine is that?
It's actually a misdemeanor charge that would be through the Buncombe County court system. There is no, unless you want us to consider putting it in ordinance, which would be a quicker charge, but the misdemeanor may discourage more people because of being inconvenienced by going to court and paying court fees.
I'd also like to add to that too. We already do sell beer.
We already do sell beer and wine on the street, so people can already right now take a beer and go past the boundary. In my opinion, a social district, you're still having open containers in the event. So adding a social district won't change the fact that you still could just walk out of the boundary right now.
But this is an additional time. Didn't it used to start at 5?
Yeah, last year we started at 4 p.m. for the music. And so this year we're again starting at 4 p.m. 3:30 is what we have for our special event permit, just to help with that congestion that happens right at that 4 p.m. time slot when the music starts. And the social district starting at 3:30 is just to be consistent with the special event permit.
Seems like a lot of work for 6 hours.
For the social district?
Yeah.
Because it's a one-day social district, that allows us to be a little bit more nimble about things, like having lawn signs instead of, some of these other places that have a regular social district. They print out metal signs and cement them into the ground. And for us, we have contacts at Henco who can print these out very easily for us. And so it's, much quicker for us to engage it for a special event only.
Any other questions?
So at the last council meeting, Chief Oberlin and previous Chief Ron talked about you had gone to Brevard and seen how it worked over there, and you had some concerns there. And I understand that you all have talked here. Do you have those concerns for Weaverville that you saw in Brevard?
Camille and her partners have done an amazing job actually working with us to try in every way to meet some of our desires to lower the risk or to make it more comfortable should you choose to accept it. So as an example, although the bartenders could legally be allowed to sell 2 drinks to one person, so you could stand in line and we could hand you 2 beers, they did agree that because of the small footprint and the over-serving issues that we had last year, that it would be just as pleasant if they just got one and went and had a drink and had to go through the inconvenience of standing in the line again. It may pace it out a little bit or help with some of the issues. So they have done or agreed to do everything that we've asked them to do in the chance that you may consider this and try to make it the safest that they could.
Any others?
Yes, is there an option for non-single-use plastic? I know it's probably regulated by the ABC store or ABC commission, but just a question.
The most difficult part with not using single-use plastic is that it's reusable. And so for this one-day event, it's not that big of a deal. In other towns, they might have metal cups that they use, but that encourages some people to fill it up at home and bring it back out. So the good part about, especially the sticker method is that doesn't go through the dishwasher. It's not going to last. In this one-day event, it would be a bit cost prohibitive to do non-single-use plastic, and having everyone buy metal cups for it. But all of our businesses are aware of just being eco-conscious, and there are a lot of compostable plastic cups or more green-friendly plastic cups, and definitely ones that are recyclable. And we've had those conversations with them about more green-friendly plastic cups.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So I just want to remind folks that Music on Main now for several years has been a very popular and very positive experience for our town. And really the only thing that this changes is it's the same as it's always been, except that now locally owned businesses will be able to benefit from the sales as well. So I think nothing changes except our local owned business get an advantage here. Would anyone like to make a motion to adopt the proposed ordinance?
So moved.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Excellent. Thank you. Look forward to the event.
Thank you.
Next item up is item C, presentation on possible Florida Avenue reconfigurations, and Bill Boughton, also from the Weaverville Business Association, will present this.
That's going to be a tough act to follow. I don't have any PowerPoints.
Oh, darn.
So, first off, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. What we're here to present is the Weaverville Business Association. This is Priscilla. She's our administrator. I'm the president. We recently held a meeting of our members who operate businesses on or adjacent to Florida Avenue for the purpose of discussing possible changes to that streetscape, is the term we're using. This is something I've been around a while, and this has come up in various form or fashion probably for 15 years now or more. And here in the last, say, couple of months, as the president, I was getting inquiries from a number of businesses and some other folks, so it seemed like a opportune time for the WBA to meet with those businesses that would be most impacted by any changes. So that's what we did. And basically the group, after met for, say, a good hour and a half, 2 hours, came up with 3 suggestions for improvements that we reached a consensus on. First and foremost is not to shut down the avenue. That I think was probably one of the ones that most people had most concerns about, actually closing that to vehicular traffic, and I think a number of the businesses thought that would be very disruptive for them. But what we did reach a consensus on would be, and I know this is going to surprise some folks, but eliminating the 3 parking spaces that are currently on the right side to give us more room to expand the sidewalks. And the idea there is what we are proposing or would like to see or are suggesting is that would require a pretty significant repaving, moving, sort of, because right now if you remove those, you're gonna have a big wider space, but the idea we're trying to get here is more bigger sidewalks to make it both safer from a pedestrian standpoint, also allow some more aesthetic improvements like putting tables and chairs, putting planters within the parameters of the room that they would have. And we also think with proper signage, it might help to eliminate those certain number of vehicles that if folks that have a business there see every day, look up, see that one way and go on through and go exit out onto the street. If there are no other vehicles and a narrower space, we feel like that might actually help eliminate that to some degree. That was our primary, and these are listed in order of priority, I guess you would say. The second would be improved lighting for the area. And what we're thinking here is not just putting in just standard street lights, but more aesthetic light sources other than traditional street lights. Could be lamp posts, could be lighting attached to the sides of the buildings, or even string lights hung over and across the avenue. And that's going to be more of an aesthetic thing and also safety at night. It would also likely be something that would, if it's attached to the buildings or in that form, involve would be up to the landlords to be agreeable to that, and obviously might require the town to consider some additional ordinances regarding that. And the third is to add some additional signage to make visitors aware that there are actually additional shops and pubs and businesses located down Florida Avenue. Right now, when you look down Florida Avenue with the current streetscape, it just looks more or less like an alley as opposed to an extension of the Main Street business district. And over the last couple of years, we've had a number of businesses expand down that way, all the way to the brewery. And the general intent of the changes is to make Florida Avenue a more inviting, safe, and an accessible extension of the Main Street business district. So those were the three consensus items, and we just basically, this wasn't, I'm not even going to suggest this was the entire WBA. We addressed the businesses that would be most directly impacted to get their consensus. So that's all I had to present tonight, but I would be glad to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you. What questions y'all have?
I have one. Regarding the tables that'll be out there, who will determine the priority on which businesses can use it? Because you've got several businesses, and you could have one that wants to have several, or would the tables be something that the town would furnish?
We're not suggesting the town do anything other than the paving. To me, it would be the businesses that front that and their landlords that would determine who gets access and who can put what. I mean, because they may not own the sidewalks, but my perspective, it wouldn't make sense to say, my business is here and this business down here can put up. I mean, it's going to be up to the individual businesses, or I suppose the landlords, to determine what they might want to do. Now, if the town wanted to do a beautification and put in, planters or something like that, that's certainly be the town's prerogative. But we're not trying to dictate to any of the landowners how they would, utilize that property. That'd be between them and the businesses, and obviously within whatever the town ordinance they may choose to implement.
I was more specifically interested in whether or not some businesses may have a disproportionate use of it for the ones that are in that area. And so that's the reason I was asking about the determination.
Mm-hmm. We haven't gotten that far in the weeds, and I don't think we would go to the point of putting signs on table. This is for well-bred, this is for, that did not actually come up as a concern per se. There was some discussion of leaving the parking spaces as they are, but putting in a little fenced out area, and then that becomes problematic because of that very same issue. The idea here is just put even sidewalks on both sides and then let the landlords and the businesses. Well-bred had tables out there that started during the pandemic, and town realized after that was over that there wasn't enough safety issue with passageway, so this is would allow other businesses to do the same.
I think, in my opinion, because I walk all the time, if you put tables on both sides, you're not going to make it safer for pedestrians, because then all you're going to have is clogged up tables on both sides, and people are still going to end up walking in the street.
The idea was also to expand those sidewalks too. So in order to
Priscilla.
create in order to create that extra space, the idea was to expand the sidewalks on both sides. So eliminating the parallel spots on that one side would allow for that extra footprint, because the goal is to create more walkability overall. So it would serve both purposes of the extra recreational space in addition to that space for people to walk back and forth. And there's some other accessible issues that could be discussed, such as the intersection, the crosswalk goes into the alleyway a little bit. You have to turn the corner on that sidewalk before you can cross the sidewalk. So there's a lot of issues surrounding the accessibility of that area, and we do feel like it would be great to address all of those in one shot. And as Bill mentioned, there are a lot of details that just have to be dug out, and we're not standing in front of you as engineers, and we know that it takes time. I know that a lot of the business owners amongst the area have been very passionate about it for a very long time, and so we're urging and requesting a start somewhere, and we do feel like that would be a great start, and we'd be happy to have further conversations based on that. So thank you.
I would also add that if you lose those parking spaces, you don't have what essentially looks like 2 lanes of traffic. It could be very easy for someone. I don't know how many of the businesses have said they see people pull up, stop, look up, look at the sign, then kind of look around, and then just go straight. Because they have vehicles coming at them this way and they see a lane on the right going that way. And I mean, I know there is a sign right there, but if you just had only room for 1 lane of traffic, I think it would be much harder for people to go, oh, I thought it was 2 ways.
So you're proposing taking out the 3 parking spots there by the bridal shop?
Correct.
But that is still, that part of Florida Avenue is still you can still drive
What we would
through it?
do is then you'd have to
You're not eliminating
move
driving on that part of,
you'd have to move the roadway to make it equidistant. Whoa. I'm not even Italian, I'm using my hand. To make it equidistant sidewalks. So to make that happen, we understand it would involve moving the road, in essence. So there would be some construction work to do that.
Be narrowing it down.
It would be a narrower roadway, basically, because you would not have the parking spots.
Yes, sir. If I may just ask some questions. I've got who pays, who pays, who pays.
Yep.
Was there conversation about how, obviously, the WBA does not have the funds to pay for widening a sidewalk.
Nope. And like I said,
nor does the town council have it in their budget right now. So was there any conversation about looking into some Main Street funding, anything like that? Did you give?
at this point, our main goal was to get a consensus from the businesses until we had a consensus on what people wanted to do. And like I said, I think there was a lot of misunderstanding. A lot of people automatically thought it was a plan to close down the street, which it's not. But in answer, no. Obviously, we don't have the funding and recognize this isn't going to happen a month from now. And obviously, exploring some funding or grants would probably be a likely way to proceed.
Sure. So another thought that I had is we have since probably the beginning of Weaverville, had problems with all of our sidewalks being the right width for handicap accessibility when there are tables, especially when there are tables. We have that now. We've had it for many, many years. So what kind of width are you talking about expanding? Have you gotten to that place?
No, because again, we're not engineers. I mean, you'd have to measure out the whole thing, and I don't know the ordinances saying how much clearance, to meet ADA standards, but yeah, that's would all have to be, I guess, as part of a feasibility study to see. I'm sure, I would assume you could easily put small 2-persons tables. I doubt you could fit 6, 8-person tables.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, we have small 2-persons tables that we find 8 people sitting at regularly. 8 might be a little bit of an extreme, but
Constantly.
five pretty regularly. So we still would have to maintain handicap space on those sidewalks. So it would certainly be something that town council would want to consider as we move forward. And then the only other question I had, I know that a number of the businesses there on that back up to Merchants Alley have trucks that regularly drop off, supplies. Were there issues brought up with any of that? Obviously, they're going to turn the opposite way. Once they go up that alley, they're going to turn the opposite way. But were there any thoughts or drawbacks in that regard in your conversation?
That certainly came up, but that's why we also invited all the businesses from Florida Avenue all the way down to Central, and had representatives from most of them, and they did not feel let's put it this way: closing it would have been a real bear, but nobody that I recall expressed. It was essentially a consensus.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Schaaf?
Yes, it seems like since it's a combined area, determining the minimum width of the road we need, and I know there's standards that we would need to follow, but then there's truck traffic, there's some sight lines. If Main Street's really busy and you're trying to turn on Florida off of Main Street, that can be challenging. So making sure that we have the minimum widths and then whatever breathing room is recommended. How much space do we really have left? Are we talking by adding a foot to each side or a foot to one side and 3 feet to the other? It might be nice to have a little kind of site plan or some educational or what I should say, design information that really shows us what we're gonna have potentially.
And again, we don't know what the town's requirements are or DOT or that sort of thing. Again, the idea here is we're not coming to you with a set proposal, just giving you the consensus, because this has been a recurring thing.
Yes.
So that was the idea here.
Anyone else?
Sounds like feasibility is maybe the next step.
So I'll just say that, council has debated trying to beautify and make improvements to Fort Avenue for a very long time. And I'm really pleased to see the business association come together with a consensus and some solid recommendations. Figuring out the details about how wide roads would be and how wide sidewalks, that's something that staff would have to figure out. But I think that I want to commend you for coming to us with a solid proposal, since we've debated it for a long time without any solid proposal. So thanks for that. What action what other would we like to direct the staff to do at this point?
Regarding this? Regarding this?
Yes.
I'd like to see what, if we could, a preliminary thing on cost to the town to revamp this for public works. Because you'll have to tear up the sidewalks, repave the streets, and all that, so.
It might be something as simple as, instead of having 3 tables on each side, you have one big community table on one side and one on the other side. Something like, you've been to places where you sit and have a sandwich or a drink, and somebody else that you don't know sits, and somebody else you don't know sits. So if you could narrow it down, right in the middle to where only one trucker car or whatever could get there, and then on both sides you had a community table or something, a bumped out area.
I would recommend if town council is agreeable to considering this, I would recommend that you allow staff to come back to you with a proposal on what we believe would be appropriate. And also too, that just as a reminder to us all that we have to keep in mind public safety. And so I know that in that area, similar to the area behind Twisted Laurel and back in that area, the fire department has some pretty tight spots to try to fit into in order to have fire protection. So I would think that we would want to pull our staff together, get some estimates of what we would look at, and we'll volunteer Mr. Pennell to draw up some designs potentially and get some quotes.
Well, and that fire truck's the most important thing that needs
Absolutely
to go
it
down
is.
that lane.
Absolutely it is, absolutely.
Actually, turning Florida Avenue into a more pedestrian-friendly and aesthetic-looking area is something that the council has talked about for a long time. So it sounds like we've got consensus, that's what we want to do. And so let's say we direct the staff to do just as the manager just described. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you all. Next item up is item E, transition of WICL to town programming. And I'm assuming you all know the acronym WICL.
We do.
Okay, and Manager Coffey, this is yours.
Yes, sir, thank you. You do have some information here, and happy to have Mr. Balistreri and Ms. Myers also answer questions or join in the conversation and add whatever you would like. I will share with you that I have the budget that you will see in more detail at your next workshop. Does contain funding, and I did mention this to you at your March 19th meeting. Excuse me, your April 16th meeting, your last workshop, does include funding for the town to assume the programming at the community center. We do want to thank and certainly recognize Mr. Balistreri and all of his board and volunteers for all that they've done. And would probably even propose a proclamation at a future meeting recognizing them and their work on behalf of the town in this area. But I do want to share with you that I have included funding, even for a chairman, to help with the setup for theater programming, storytelling programming, all of those kinds of things, as well as stipends for professional storytellers, professional groups. As we budgeted this current year, there was some budgeted that Mr. Alschlim requested for the I'll call them winter concerts at the community center. So the funding is in the proposed budget to do these things. Now, as we grow, we'll be adding to that, but certainly I did want to go ahead and include that in the proposed budget to begin July 1. And so that is in the budget, and you'll see more about that at your next budget workshop. And so would propose that we consider that. Would also propose at this point in time that the town council direct staff to form an ad hoc advisory committee to serve for a maximum of about a year to essentially help to acclimate our recreation coordinator in the implementation and oversight of programming at the community center. And would also recommend that town staff be permitted to take over that programming, beginning for no other reason but to begin with the fiscal year. It coincides well with the new fiscal year beginning in July, on July 1, and so would recommend that town staff authorize that at that point. Tom or Sarah, any additional comments you would like to make? I'm getting thumbs up back there. And I think I heard a whew from Tom. That is the proposal and recommended action for tonight.
Thank you. Is everyone good with the proposal that the manager just described? Good deal. Thank you. Next item up is item F, which is a quarterly report from planning and planning director Eller.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and former planning board member Balistreri as well. Man of many hats. I'll be as brief as I possibly can this evening. Total number of zoning permits issued for the first quarter of calendar year 2024 was 27. We'll break down of that number immediately below. A new line item for the first time on this report are stormwater flyers distributed. This is in partnership with our friends of Land of Sky and our collaborative stormwater efforts. That began in the middle of this quarter, but will basically be reflective of all new construction moving forward. Just letting folks know that when they're turning dirt, what it is that they're supposed to do to keep that dirt on their property. Planning board activity. In January, the board reviewed and approved preliminary plans for the Windsor-built Reems Creek major subdivision. In February, the board reviewed and offered a recommendation to town council on the initial zoning of 6 and 9 Pleasant Grove upon annexation. The board also offered a favorable recommendation to town council on the environmental regulations that were recently adopted by the governing board. In March, the board received a SDR engagement report from Land of Sky Regional Council, and Ms. DeChristina, that was brought up earlier this evening, gave a report to the board on that report. And the Board of Adjustment met for the first time in a little while in January. They had their annual election of officers, and staff also used that as an educational opportunity to provide them with some continuing educational and quasi-judicial procedures. That's all I have for the board this evening, and I'm happy to address any comments anyone may have.
Any questions for James? Thank you, sir. Last item, quarterly report from Finance and Finance Director Dozier.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have the third quarter finance report for you. So on page 128 is the chart of revenues that you're used to seeing. All of our revenues are continuing to trend favorably. Most are just over budget, which is right where we like them to be. Last quarter, if you remember, sales tax was very slightly below, like 1% below budget. We have caught up. We're right at our budgeted number right now. So we're hoping that holds through the end of the year. The only one that's slightly below is the Buncombe County fire tax because of the sales tax component in that tax. But again, it's very slightly below, and our hope is it will reach budget by the end of the year. The next page is the expenditures, which are all under budget. If we could jump ahead to page 130. If you recall from our budget adoption last year, we used a lot of fund balance for capital projects in this current year's budget. We started the year with 1.9 million in the adopted budget. We're now at 3.6 million from the reappropriations, things that weren't spent last fiscal year, went to fund balance, got reappropriated. So in this current year budget, we're at 3.6 million of appropriated fund balance. So I thought this might be a good time of year to get you a status on where those capital projects stand. So in the list here, you'll see the LED light conversion. I'm sure you all noticed when that took place throughout Town Hall and the police department. The barrier, the modular barrier system came in very early in the fiscal year. It's been used several times, and I think everyone has agreed it's been very successful and helpful. The 3 police patrol vehicles are here and in use. The renovation downstairs in the police department, converting some of the storage space to office space for our expanding police force, is underway. Replacement of engine 8 in the fire department. We had $300,000 in the budget this year. We could have put that down as a down payment and saved a little bit of discount, but it was more beneficial to us to keep those funds and earn interest on them. And they didn't require a down payment. So we still are in possession of those $300,000, and we'll be asking you before the end of the year to move that into a capital reserve fund so that it doesn't revert to fund balance. And it's there, because that's a 3-year wait time on that engine. The street improvement program is underway. We've got $1.8 million to spend on that this year, which we're hopeful to get most of that done before the end of the fiscal year. The garbage truck has been delayed a couple of times. It's now expected next month. We hope that's going to happen. The street sweeper came in back in the fall. You've probably seen that around town. The playground equipment, as you know, has been a huge success. And the water line replacement program, I say here that the project's near completion. I didn't realize it's actually last year's project that is just now got the final things done with the engineering. And the new project for this year is just getting started. Any questions on the capital before we move on? And if we could go ahead to page 141, the rec complex, you'll see year-to-date we've spent almost $393,000, and cumulative total is almost $422,000. The only thing left, to my knowledge, is what town manager proposed in her budget is the pavilion with restrooms and storage. So once we determine whether we're moving forward on that and get a price on it, we'll have an amendment to this project for you. And then the last 2 pages are your water capital projects, which are continuing to make progress with the engineering fees. And that's all I have for tonight. Any questions I can answer for you?
I have one question. How is health care divided up amongst all the different departments? Because I tried to look at it and it's like sometimes 13%, sometimes 23%. So is there some kind of madness logic?
Our healthcare post-expense hits through payroll. So it's a matter of where employees are coded in payroll.
Okay.
So for most of us, well, a lot of people are allocated. like myself and town manager and or public works director, we're allocated amongst different departments. Our front staff here works a lot in water billing, so a lot of their salary is posted to the water fund. So it doesn't really, you can't tie it back to the number of employees in each department,
Okay.
always.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Because I was noticing the water was a lot higher than the average of something else I
Yes.
had looked at.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you'll see, if I may add, you'll see in particular in the Public Works Division, so grounds maintenance, streets, sanitation, you might see in stormwater, you might see some lower numbers in salaries and all of the line items, including Health Department. And then, and you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, in, let's say, planning, there's $7,000, but then in this other department, there's only 2,000. So it's because they're allocated out to it's a cost allocation process.
Any other questions for Tanya? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We do have some items to discuss in closed session this evening, and Trini's asking, could you give us appropriate wording for a motion to do so?
Yes, sir. Motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-318.11A3, to consult with the town attorney under attorney-client privilege, which is hereby acknowledged, under NCGS 143-318.11A5, to establish or to instruct the public body staff or negotiating agents concerning the positions to be taken by or on behalf of the public body in negotiating the price and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease, or the amount of compensation and other material terms of an employment contract or proposed employment contract, and under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6, to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment of a public officer or employee.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll reconvene in a couple of minutes in the conference room.
Okay.
there's nothing more for us to do tonight. We are adjourned.
Good.